We're getting ready for that 2024 season, and we're going to look at some statistical leaders that we're expecting from Boston College football.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College. I'm your host, AJ Black. We're here to talk about football today. We're going to have Mitch Wolfe of Eagle Insider on with us today. We're going to go over your reader and listener poll results on statistical leaders for the Eagles, your predictions, who you think is going to have the best season for Boston College upcoming. So to join us, as I said, Mitch Wolfe of Eagle Insider. He's been on the show a lot, and I know you all know and love Mitch. Mitch, how's it going?
It's going well. You know, I'm a numbers guy, so I'm excited to see what our fans are kind of hoping for and expecting for with across these bunch of categories. And it's a good thing to have this kind of thing in May when the content is starting to dry up a little bit.
Right. Yeah. As we hit June, we're going to go down to 3 episodes a week probably. And it's going to actually, it's 3 a week, but with official visit season, I'm going to be a busy one talking about recruiting, but we'll see what happens. But right now it's rough. And we've got some good stuff to talk about though. So let's kick this off. I put on Eagle Insider. Make sure you guys have bookmarked that if you have not done so already. A poll with about 15 questions on it. We've got over 250 respondents on many of these questions, and it all has to do with the upcoming season. So let's get into this first question. We'll see what your results are and see what Mitch thinks. How many passing yards will Thomas Castellanos throw in 2024? Now, this is a big question because you have Bill O'Brien here, who has been working a lot with Castellanos on his passing. He threw for 2,100 yards last year.
And I was going to say 2,200, but that seems about right. I'll pull up the stats since we're here, but that sounds about right.
And the most common answer is he will throw 2,200 to 2,500. So a marginal improvement. But this was one of the questions that had a wide range of answers. Some people thought he'd throw for less. Some people thought, everything is roughly around 20 to 25% for everything, including him throwing over 2,700 yards to 3,000 yards, which would be a big year. The least popular answer was 3,000 plus yards. So no one's expecting Thomas Castellanos to turn into the next Matt Ryan.
Yeah, we've got a pretty normally distributed graph here, maybe a little skew to the right for our stats nerds out there. But yeah, last year he threw for 2,248 yards. So that's pretty much where everybody's falling. And I think obviously we all expect the drop back passing game to take a big step forward. Additionally, you figure you hope he starts every game. So, he kind of won't be rotating in against NIU. He won't be out for a few series against UConn. And ideally, they will be playing in a monsoon like they did against Army. So you figure ideally 13 full games, bump those numbers up a bit. And obviously, general progression of the passing attack. I think I might have voted the 25 to 2,700 yards. So I think he can get up there. With just being a little more consistent in the passing game. Also, there was another game where I felt like they just didn't throw very much. I think was it the Syracuse game maybe that they just kind of abandoned it for some reason. But anyways, yeah, I think you're going to see an uptick there.
Yeah, I think it was the Syracuse game where he couldn't throw anymore.
Yeah, I think he was struggling with that injury in that game.
Yeah, and so they were running a ton, and that was the Andre Hines game, if we remember that. So. First question, that one's kind of a drier question, but we get some good ones coming up here. Who will be Boston College's most impactful transfer on defense? Now, we have 4 answers up here. We have Sad McConnell, Bryquise Brown, Ryan Turner, and Cam Martinez. And it's neck and neck between Ryan Turner and Cameron Martinez. With Turner, who's had a good spring. Both the people like the Ohio State guys. I wonder if it's just because they're Ohio State guys, but I thought Ryan Turner had a good spring game. He played a lot out there. He had some big plays at the end. I thought he had a good spring as well. Cameron Martinez, we haven't seen yet because he hasn't been on campus yet, but he's projected to be in the mix for safety. Mitch, which one would you pick? I got a feeling you might go something completely different here.
Yeah, I think I voted for Bryquise Brown here. It was Brown or Turner for sure, just because McConnell's a little bit buried on the depth chart. He's going to probably be behind George Rooks for that at the 1 defensive tackle spot, the 3 technique. So he's just going to, he's not just going to have enough playing time to probably be the most impactful player there. I know Bryquise Brown it seems like Max Tucker's going to be the starter across from Maury Jackson. But I don't know. I think he could end up being a starter, I think, because of how experienced and reliable he can be. But if Ryan Turner is going to be the main slot defender, then that makes total sense why he's leading this poll. And Cam Martinez, I totally think that could happen. Obviously, he just hasn't been with the team yet. He's graduating. Hopefully, I wonder if he was at that weird Ohio State commencement with the really strange commencement speaker they had. But it's just kind of a matter of where is he going to play? Is he going to be a free safety? Is he going to be the slot defender? How are they going to use him? So it makes sense that these two are tied, but I just don't have enough information to feel really confident about Cameron Martinez right now.
Yeah, I voted for Ryan Turner just because of what I saw. Bryquise Brown, I saw playing with the ones at times, but Turner seemed more locked in with them. I thought he played a lot more in the corner. I mean, the nickel. And so I thought he had a bigger role, but I agree with what you've said. I forget who said it this. It may have been Halfley when he was talking to us that Bryquise Brown was going to be one of the steals of this transfer portal.
Yeah, I think he was a really big fan of Brown before he ended up leaving.
So yeah, I'm sure you guys all care what Halfley had to say about that. But anyways, now we'll do one more and then we're going to take a quick break. Who will be the most impactful transfer on offense? So you're looking at the answers here. There's two big answers. The biggest one is Jerand Bradley with 38%, and then Treshaun Ward with 26%. Jordan McDonald had 3 votes. Grayson James had more votes, but I'm guessing those are some fans that watched that spring game that are going, he's going to start over Thomas Castellanos.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I totally agree with picking Bradley here. I'm sure that's what I picked. I've been singing his praises for a long time, even despite a pretty rough spring game. But I think he's going to get locked in during summer/fall camp, and I think he's really going to be an impactful player. Ward, I think, is definitely going to have a big role in this offense. Robichaux, he's obviously a very useful player. He has last year, he did kind of get nicked up at times. So you hope that by not running him as much this in the fall, they'll rotate in Ward more so they can keep Robichaux healthier for later in the season, later in games. And that means Ward is going to have a bigger role, especially with Alex Broom possibly being out for the extended amount of time. Third in this is Kamari Morales at 16.86%. I think he's definitely going to have a role. I think he's going to be the starting tight end. I think he's going to have a pretty good year. I just think that he is probably the guy who's going to he's like 3rd or 4th in the pecking order for touches. So I just don't think he's that dynamic of a downfield receiving threat as a tight end. I think he's a good player and he's going to be useful, but he's not I don't think he's anywhere near as impactful as Hunter Long was back in 2020.
Right. Yeah. He's going to be a guy that can get you some catches, but he's not going to be a game changer for you.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's good. You needed guys that can do that. I felt
considering how rocky the tight end position has been for the last 2 years, you really just hope for a guy that can be stable, stay on the field, and not drop, half the targets that gets thrown his way.
Yes. Now, in a moment, we have some more poll questions, including rushing, receiving. We're going to get into all of that in just a moment. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. With superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. This is Locked On Boston College, AJ Black, and we're over at Eagle Insider. We have a ton of stuff going on. It's the quiet time right now. But we have recruiting news. We have a basketball commitment that I didn't get a chance to actually research this kid yet, but we'll have him on for talk about him on tomorrow's episode. Go over to Eagle Insider right now. Get all of the information that you need to be the best Boston College fan you want to be. And Mitch is going to be over there. We have a ton of good stuff. So we're going back to our poll, and we're going to go to the defensive side of the ball here. And this is a question, I could have put interceptions, but that can be kind of subjective because it could be, thrown away from a guy or whatnot. But I did I asked the question, who will lead Boston College in pass breakups? And this one, I think of any question I asked, I believe this had the biggest runaway answer, and it was Amari Jackson with 57% of the choice. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, this can also be a little bit misleading because in order to lead the team in pass breakups, you probably have to be the guy that's thrown out the most. And it looks like Amari Jackson is going to be the number one corner for this team, which does mean he's going to probably draw opposing team's number one receiver. So therefore, he could get thrown out the most. But I also think he's the most talented corner on this roster. So maybe teams are going to try to throw away from him, go at a young guy like Max Tucker or a guy who's not experienced like Ryan Turner. So stuff like that. But I mean, it is funny just how much of a runaway this is. Max Tucker's in second place with 13%. Ryan Turner's in third with 8.6%. So yeah, I mean, again, this makes sense. I do think that probably Jackson's ball skills in terms of pass breakups are not as good as Elijah Jones is, because Elijah Jones's whole thing was like length and being very physical with receivers. Jackson's not exactly the type of player. So I think that he could end up having a good season in terms of being thrown at, but because he's covering the opponent so well, it's going to be an incompletion just because it's an inaccurate ball. The quarterback's trying to throw away from the defender. But I mean, I could see Max Tucker leading in this category, honestly. I think he's going to get thrown out a good bit, and he's a pretty aggressive player, so he could end up leading in this category. And so, yeah, I think that this is a fun one to think about. And like you said, interceptions can be kind of fluky, and there's a few where you get like tip balls, and it's like, okay, well, the guy just kind of happened to be in the right place at the right time.
So yeah, I was gonna pick Ryan Turner as just a guy, in the slot. If they go after him, I feel like he might have a chance to get more tips.
Mm-hmm.
But this was a tricky one. Let's see what we have coming up next. Who will lead Boston College in receiving yards? The number one choice was Lewis Bond, which I thought this would be closer, but it wasn't. With 49% of the votes, Jerand Bradley had 18% and Jaden Skeet had 16%. Now, Mitch, I would have picked. I think I'm going to pick Jaden Skeet for this one. I'm going to go with a dark horse on this, just because I thought he had an incredible spring. I just got a feeling that they're going to put a lot of number one receivers on Lewis Bond. They're bigger guys on Bradley, and then Skeet might be able to get some better looks out there. So I'm going to go with a dark horse here with Jaden Skeet.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I think I could see this kind of ending up like Bond, Bradley, and Skeet all having like about 800 some yards. They're all pretty close to each other. It's interesting because of how differently they're used. Like if you think about Bond, so many of his yards were right after the catch. They'd hit him just on screens or RPO slants, little stuff like that. And he had some good downfield plays as well. Whereas a guy like Bradley, his average at the target, like he's going to get thrown the ball deep post, deep digs, go routes, all that kind of stuff. So, that could be a little more hit or miss because those are, 50-50 balls and what have you. And then Skeet, it'll be interesting to kind of see how he fits in this offense because we just didn't see as much of him. There were certainly good flashes, but I definitely agree with you that he's going to probably have the best coverage assignments. He's probably going to be playing outside with Bond in the slot and Bradley at the other side of the field. But yeah, I do think Bond is probably going to lead this one just because I think he's going to get the most targets. So he has reliable hands. So he's going to catch them and he's going to have the opportunity to get the most yards. But I do think this one is probably going to be close. I don't think you're going to see any one of these players really run away with the receiving yards.
Do you have a dark horse for this one?
I mean, by the poll, I guess I would go Bradley just because of how much I've gassed him up. Because basically, if he can, convert a lot of those big downfield targets into long receptions, that can help him, really vault over a guy like Bond, who, if he turns, a bubble screen at 10 yards, that's great. But, Bradley's, getting 20 yards or 30 yards on downfield go routes. So I guess Bradley would be my quote unquote dark horse in this one.
All right. In our final segment, we have one more to go. And then I want to ask Mitch a little bit about his thoughts of this upcoming season. Any thoughts about the poll from yesterday? Get his thoughts about wins and things like that. We'll get his thoughts. I gotta keep saying that word in just a moment. Now, Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA, which makes getting playoff tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go closer as it gets closer to the tip-off. You're trying to get to those Celtics games. You want to get good deals with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices. You're going to get them on Game Time. And with your seat finder, it's going to show you exactly where you're going to sit. So you're not buying tickets where you're, looking at a poll or not seeing what you want to see. So what you got to do, download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. That's LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. It's a great app. I use it all the time to get sports tickets. You should be doing it too. And you can do it for theater and concert as well. So download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. All right, Locked On Boston College, AJ Black here, joined by Mitch Wolfe, and we're talking about this poll. We have one more to go. I thought I had more, but I feel like we didn't. So my last question for you. Who will be Boston College's leading rusher? And Kye Robichaux was the runaway winner for this one with 50%, 49.78%. Thomas Castellanos with 26.2%, and Treshaun Ward with 22%. It feels like this one would be an easy one, but you never know.
This one I could also see being closer than people anticipate, mainly because I think they are going to try to not lean on Robichaux as hard as they did last year, again, in hopes that they can keep him healthy late into the season. I think you're going to see Ward get a lot of snaps. I think you're going to see those snaps be distributed among them pretty evenly. And obviously Castellanos is going to be a threat with his legs. With him, you kind of think that he's not going to be used as much as a designed runner. I think, Bill O'Brien wants to turn him into more of a drop back passer. So you're not going to see those plays where they have, 8 offensive linemen on the field and a fullback, and it's just the most obvious quarterback run you could imagine. I guess my dark horse would be Treshaun Ward here. I think Robichaux probably does end up leading the team in rushing. I'm a little skeptical if he gets to 1,000 again. Maybe he does because last year, again, he missed some games. And just didn't have the opportunity to get as many carries. So you think maybe this year, if he can stay a little healthier, he can turn those. And also the offensive line is probably going to be a little bit worse, especially in the run game. So you would think maybe just the holes are not going to be as wide open as they were last year.
I also think too, there's going to be more. I think they're going to distribute the ball more. Last year, you had Jeff Hafley. You had Kye Robichaux and the Happy Little Elves. Sorry, the 5'8" running backs that couldn't do anything. Now he's got a running back room full of guys that are, Jordan McDonald's huge. You get some bigger guys out there. I don't expect Jordan McDonald to be like a every down back, but you get him that he can do a few things here and there, and you got Treshaun Ward that can spell him. So I could see something weird happening, like with Ward, getting 600, 700 yards somehow, and doing something that kind of cuts back on what Robichaux has to do. I could also see Castellanos doing it again. I mean, it could be anything. So that was our poll. I thought that was fun. I think I'm glad you guys all answered our questions. That was my first time playing with this poll system. So as I said, there were at least a few questions where I had like an answer that apparently got cut off. I don't know why that happened. Like, would BC win 0 ACC games? Now we're going to go rapid fire with Mitch. I want to ask him the questions from yesterday. Ask him for his answer and a quick why he's choosing that. So, Mitch, I didn't prep you for this, but you're on the spot here for this, okay?
Yeah, let's go.
All right. ACC wins for BC next year.
They're playing 8 games, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I'll say 4.
Why?
I'll pick it. I'll say it's Virginia, Syracuse, Pitt, and I'll say North Carolina.
All right. So that answers the question. Then, what's your upset of the year? Like a team that BC.
Yeah, I guess it would be North Carolina. Because they'll probably have a better record and they'll probably be favored in that game if I had to guess. Although I think it's at BC, right? So I could see that being a pretty toss-up line. And I'm not sure if Michigan State would count as an upset either. One that I was thinking about earlier today, I was talking with somebody that the Louisville game is kind of weirdly sandwiched for BC and Louisville, because I believe Louisville is coming up to BC after being on the road at Miami and going from Miami up to Boston, and I believe it's a short week for them too. I think maybe they're playing on Saturday and this game's on Friday. And I think it's Halloween weekend, so it might be pretty cold at BC that night. And if I know anything about Tyler Shuck, he will probably be hurt by this point in the season, so they might be onto their backup quarterback, and that might kind of render all those additions they got in the transfer portal moot. So I would say, I guess UNC would be my first choice, and probably Louisville would be my very, very dark horse second.
So I picked UNC because I feel like by the end of the season they always turn into pumpkins. So, so that was one. How about overall wins on the season?
I'm gonna say 6. I think it's easier to get to 6 than a lot of people think, because Duquesne, obviously, I feel pretty good about Western Kentucky. I feel very good about Virginia. I feel decently confident about Michigan State. I think that is kind of a toss-up. We'll see. I feel pretty good about Syracuse. I know they're probably going to have like a great record going in this game because their schedule is extremely easy, but I just think NBC's coming off a bye that game, and I think Bill O'Brien's going to coach circles around Fran Brown. And then I think Pitt has somehow gotten worse than they were last year. They hemorrhaged a lot of talent. So I think that gets to 6, and some of those are more confident than others. And if you can pick up a steal with UNC, SMU, or Louisville along the way, then that gets you to 6 or maybe even 7. So then you go into the bowl game 7-5, and maybe you can finally break that barrier to get to the 8 wins.
All right, and then my final question is: what would this season need to look like for it to be successful for Bill O'Brien?
I think he probably needs to get to 6-6. I think if he goes 5-7, and a lot of the games are close, and they play the good teams well, and play good teams well, I think, play Florida State well to start the year, don't get completely blown out by Missouri or Virginia Tech or Louisville or whatever. I think if you show competitiveness and, 5-7, you just give a few games that don't break your way, I don't think that's like a failure. Obviously it's him coming into a new team. It's a new system. It's all that, don't want to discount the possibility of injuries. So that's possible. And, I think 4-8 would be disappointing. I don't know if I'd call it a failure, but it's kind of somewhere in between there. So I would say, but I think that would be kind of the baseline where it's like, if it's basically get to 500 and then see if you can get above it at the bowl game.
All right. And that wraps up our episode. So we talked about this poll. We talked about Mitch's results. Mitch, where can people find your work, and what do you got going on?
You can find me at Mitchell T. Wolfe, WOLFE on Twitter. Currently, I am working on a deep dive piece into the offensive line. I just got finished with that linebacker piece, which is still up on the site for VIP members. We might make the OL one free to the public. It's not as vitriolic as the linebacker one was, I would say. So just keep an eye out for that. I'm hoping to get that done by the end of this week, so I'll be ready for next week at some point. And the offensive line is obviously always a huge topic at BC, and so going into this year with some big changes, it'll definitely be something interesting that I think people will want to read. All
right. And yes, as I said, tomorrow we'll get into this new commitment for BC basketball. It's a center from North Carolina. We'll get into who that is. It's not a transfer. It's a 2024 recruit. We'll talk all about that on tomorrow's episode. If you want the details now, go over to Eagle Insider. We'll have full details on who this kid is. Talk about it out there. Follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247. Hit that like and subscribe button before you head out, and we'll see you again tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Boston College, your team every day.